This is KUGAN CASSIUS Rifle from London. We're at Brisbane Road here, Leyton Orient versus an Arsenal Select 11. With me I've got the chairman of Leyton Orient, Barry Hearn. Oh, it's nothing to do with boxing today, is it?
Ah, what a nice change, KUGAN. You know, we can talk about football and no one threatens to sue you. I love it.
You love it. Obviously, you know, Arsenal have had a link up with the pre-season with Leyton Orient in the past. There's been a few games between the two before, so it works well, doesn't it? It draws a crowd here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's an Arsenal 11 because obviously the mainstream boys are just coming back from tour, but these sort of games are very important for local clubs like Leyton Orient. You know, you get a few thousand people at the door. Yeah, everyone gets to see the team that starts the league campaign this Saturday, so it's very interesting to see how they look, you know, and it's just, I think it's part of the season. You know, you get through your pre-seasons, you go into your league matches, you bring your cup matches, and it creates that little special community feel for a small football club, which is what we are. We know what we are.
You've missed out on promotion into the Championship recently. What's going to be different this season?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the great thing about Leyton Orient, you never know what you're going to get. You know, I mean, 2 of the last 3 years we've come 7th, which is 1 spot off the playoffs. So obviously we're hoping to go that extra stage, but nothing is a gimme. You know, there's 24 teams in Division 1. They're all trying for their life to get out of the division and most importantly not to leave the division downwards, which is another issue which can be really painful. So everyone's trying 100% and it all comes down to what type of squad you got. You know, we've got a decent manager, Russell Slade. He's been here for a few years now, done a great job for us. I think he's got together a really good team. Good squad, not so many changes from last year, and we finished the season really strong. Spirit looks good, and in team games the spirit is so important. You know, it's not an individual game, it's about getting 11 guys to gel on the pitch at the same time. There's a lovely atmosphere behind the scenes, and you know, we're excited. I mean, but again, there's 72 football clubs in the, in the Football League. The fans are all excited this time of the year. You never really know what you're going to get. So you say a little prayer and you hope God's kind to you.
Can you give us an update on the situation regarding the Olympic Stadium?
Well, I mean, you know, obviously we're in discussions with everybody trying to safeguard the future of this little football club. We've been in existence for 130 years. We're a major part of the East End. You know, West Ham are moving into an iconic stadium with a lot of free tickets, so they're going to hurt us because the stadium is the Olympic Park is 750 yards away from this stadium. So we're trying to ground share, and we're not getting a lot of help from a lot of people. Now we're fighting our corner as people in the East End have done for generations. That's not going to change, and we're trying to convince everyone that, you know, it makes sense from a community and a legacy aspect that a big Premiership club getting the benefit of access to the Olympic Stadium sits well with a community club on alternate Saturdays. We think it ticks both boxes. On the one side, the money machine works, and on the other side, the community and the smaller club doesn't suffer. We hope some common sense comes in, and it's going to be a long old struggle. But, you know, KUGAN, we've talked about so many things, boxing, snooker, darts, pool. Life's a struggle for a lot of people. So this is a small struggle in comparison to other struggles. And we never give in, as you know, and we're never bullied out of anything. So at the end of the day, we stand our corner.
In your opinion, at the top level of football, has football gone mad with
mental
transfer fees, etc., etc.?
Crazy, crazy. I mean, it's a mystery to me. I was never in favour of any government intervention into football because I think, you know, an ombudsman or something like that can be civil service gone mad. I'm coming around to thinking that the government should actually take over football. You know, the national game is so important to the whole country, and yet the Premier League, with the billions of pounds it's bringing in and the wages structure and the money. I mean, we're talking about Gareth Bale going for approaching you know, maybe approaching €100 million. You know, this is an incredible amount of money. And yet you look at the smaller clubs, Leyton Orient is just an example, but there's lots of them. And below us in Division 2, the conference, grassroots football, so important to the communities. They're being starved while the Premiership is feeding on the fat of the land. And that sometimes to me is wrong and something should be done about it, but you can't ask someone with money to give away their money. You can tell them, you can tax them, but you can't ask them nicely because they just won't share. So it's a problem.
It seems to me that a lot of players' valuations are based on what other players are worth. So, for example, Edison Cavani went for, I think it was £55 odd million. So you know, they say if he's worth that, well, he must be worth that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the Premiership have got their own equivalent of a second-hand car dealer's little black book, and they look at it like, you might say, what's a 1978 Vauxhall Victor worth? You know, 50 quid. And what's a 2012 Bentley worth? Such and such. The same thing goes with Premiership football. It's all by comparison, isn't it? You know, if a centre-half is an international centre-half who's played for his country more than 20 times, who's under 30, he has a value of X. And that's a very strange starting point because it takes away market influences of supply and demand. You know, basically you should pay what you're prepared to pay. Someone should sell for what they're prepared to sell for. But the whole margin of how you work it out has gone crazy. And it's really funny when you go down 2 divisions, just 2 divisions to Division 1, and you're talking about really good players on £2 grand a week instead of 200 grand a week. And how bad are they in comparison to their counterparts? Well, they're not 100 times worse, that's for sure.
It's a good way of looking at it. So your first game of the season, is it against?
We're away to Carlisle on Saturday. Yeah, I mean, we always start the season. In the past, we've always started really, really badly and finished strong. We're rather hoping this year with the squad that hasn't had so many changes to hit the ground running and give us a little bit of optimism going into the second half of the season. Yeah, I love this time of the year because you just don't know what's going to happen. But you know, hope springs eternal.
Is there a point in pre-season where you'll get Russell Slade in here and sort of lay down the law? What's going on?
No, I mean, I like my manager, and I've never really, in all my businesses, I've never appointed a manager and then told him how to manage, because if I ever got to that situation, I should sack myself. So it's a bit like Eddie and the boxing, really. You know, I have an opinion on everything, but I wouldn't appoint someone to run that part of the business if they listen to my opinion. They have to run it themselves, and that goes with a football club as well. The chairman always thinks he knows best. Rubbish. This chairman don't know anything about football, and the manager is employed to know about football. Now, if the results go bad, he gets sacked, and I will be the one that sack him. But he won't be on something that, you know, he won't be because he doesn't listen to me. If he did listen to me, I might sack him earlier.
I can't not really speak to you about boxing. You've recently signed the Olympic gold medalist Anthony Joshua, which took a bit of work, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose Eddie, I mean, I've met Anthony a few times, but Eddie's obviously been the one that's driven the deal. I think we've been talking for probably 9 months there-ish. And Eddie plays life and boxing so much different than I used to. He's a different animal, and I think I respect him for it. Rather than try and bludgeon him through or bully him through, Eddie's advice to him was go and see everybody else.
What do you think about that? I thought it was a bit odd.
I thought it was totally risky. But Eddie's explained the type of thing he's trying to build within boxing is a group of people that are where they want to be, not have been bludgeoned or bullied or cajoled or bribed into being where they are. And Eddie said, look, I really want Anthony Joshua as one of our team. I know the deal I want to give him, but I want him to want to be with us as much as we want him to be with him. So he's an intelligent, articulate young man. Give him time. Let him see the system. We knew that he's smart enough not to be easily led, but at the same time he's independent enough to want to see what's out there. And I think it was, for their long-term relationship, the best thing he could have said. Because now Anthony has said, I've seen everybody, I want to be with Matchroom, I want to be with Eddie Hearn, and I'll commit 3 years. And we were already committed because, as they said in the film, you know, he had us when he said hello. Anthony Joshua is a supreme talent and has the ability and potential to go not just to the top, but to be a legend in the world of boxing. But it's going to take time and it's going to take understanding, and I think the two of them, Eddie and Anthony, are going to be a hell of a double act.
Judging by their suits the other day, they're matching.
They're both very smart. They're both, you know, I mean, listen, Coog, you and me, we're out of the game, mate. These are cool characters, aren't they? and they're both articulate, intelligent, and they speak well. And one thing they've got in common, they're both the best in the world at what they do. And I think they're going to be a very successful relationship. And you know, it's a little bit like me and Steve Davis going back, you know, 40 years nearly, where I was there to do my job and Steve did his job, and we didn't overlap. We each respected each other's ability to deliver on what they were good at. And I think Anthony Joshua has got that. But for Matchroom, I have to say Eddie has now got the strongest team of fighters in his squad that I've ever seen by any promoter in the 30 years I've been involved. He has more champions and more potential than anyone has ever seen. Now it's up to the sport of boxing and the television companies, particularly our partners Sky, to promote the sport to a new, wider, broader audience that these fighters can deliver, so that we take the sport where it should be, not where it's been. And that is the very pinnacle of British sport. Because as we all know, there is nothing more exciting than a night of the fights. In the past, and I was as guilty as anyone, the fight fans have not received the value they should have received, nor has the TV broadcasters. This is a changing world now. It's got to be value for money for everyone because it's hard times. The fighters have got to be looked after properly, but they've got to at the same time expect competitive fights. We have to deliver to the broadcaster. And I think the momentum is with boxing now, certainly the best since the Eubank Ben days in the 90s. This is the dawn of a new era for boxing, and Anthony Joshua and the rest of the Matchroom stable are the flag bearers, and Eddie will, sounds almost biblical, but Eddie will take them to the promised land.
This subject has become a bit boring this week, but as you'll hear, I'm going to ask you about it. A lot of people have got an opinion about whether Carl Froch versus George Groves is pay-per-view worthy. We've been obviously Froch and Kessler back in May. Now we've got Hay and Fury coming up, so this is the third one this year.
I think you're right to ask the question, but I think it's also understandable that as the game of boxing, as the sport of boxing develops, as the fights are tougher, as the aspirations of the fighters are bigger, we have two choices. We can either compete with the American market and keep our fights and our big fights at home, or we lose out to the dollar and we lose big fights and we lose big fighters by having to box abroad for big money. Fighters will always go where the money is. There are certain fights, Hay Fury, Froch Kessler and Froch Groves are three examples of fights that would not happen without pay-per-view. That is the economic reality. So we have to make a decision, do we want pay-per-view?
Would they not happen but the fighters get less money?
No, they would go elsewhere. So in other words, instead of Froch Groves for less money, Froch would go to America and fight Andre Ward or someone. Groves would go and box in another division, not another division, but another classification in terms of WBO, WBC. Groves had three choices of where to go, so he had a world title fight anyway. He went where the most money was, and we are the beneficiaries by seeing a fight that we wouldn't have seen without pay-per-view. It's all about money, it's all about economics, and it's all about building a strong base within Britain for major domestic fights. Trust me when I tell you, on the rights fees that are available for a non-pay-per-view fight, those three fights would not have happened without it. Your choice. You want to see the fights or not?
Okay, but for someone, say I'm going to use me as an example because I'm a boxing fan that subscribes to everything as well. So, for example, my Sky bill comes to £70–80 a month, plus a Box Nation subscription of £10 a month. So I'm just going from everyone else who has in that same boat another £15 for more pay-per-view
every
fights.
individual. I agree with you. Every individual.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm over here by the pitch. Just a quick.
Shall we stop this now for a second?
In the Olympic suite. Just to run through a couple of things about what.
Right.
Well, listen, I've got to explain where we are now. It's getting quite noisy at Leyton Orient, so we've transferred to the gentlemen's toilets. So, you know, KUGAN and I don't have any problems about our sexuality, so we're quite happy to be in here. But to get back to your point, Cougs, everyone's got to make a choice, and you've got to ask yourself, how much do you want to see these fights? And it is a choice. So sometimes you won't be able to afford it, sometimes you don't think the fight's worth it, and that's the choice you have to make. All I'm saying to you is the fight doesn't happen without pay-per-view at certain levels of fights, and that's a reality of life. Otherwise, we're going to look and see all the big fights happening in America, and we're going to be starved as fight fans of seeing the real action in the UK. I don't think there should be more than 2 or 3 pay-per-views a year, in my honest opinion. I think that's as far as you want to go, but I do think if we want to see the really ultra big fights, that we have to expect to pay for them.
So do you think that ultimately it will come down to a choice of if you want to watch it, you'll pay for it?
Yes.
If not, yeah.
There's the freedom of the individual to make the choice. If there are enough people that say, I don't want to watch it, trust me, Sky won't do it. If enough people say, I want to see that fight so bad, I am prepared to pay, then Sky will do a limited number of pay-per-views. But they're not idiots. These are clever, very smart people. They know they've got 10.5 million subscribers that are paying 40, 50, 60, 70 pounds a month for Sky. So there's only so often you can go to that feeding trough. And that, in my view, is 2 or 3 times a year. And bear with me, I don't think you'll see more than that.
Okay. Just finally, Barry, anyone here today in your fancy boardroom here? That...
Well, Arsene Wenger's joining us, obviously, to look at the Orient team. He hasn't made a signing this year so far. He hasn't spent any money. And I'm clearly expecting a multi-million-pound offer sometime this evening for one of my players.
What's the chances of you telling Wenger to get on iFilm London?
I can tell him, but he may say, I don't speak the English very well.
Okay, no problem. Well, if you don't ask, you don't get. Thank you very much, Barry.
Cheers.